The Galactic Council, desperate to regain control, deployed reinforcements from distant sectors. More warships, more soldiers, more weapons. They believed that overwhelming numbers would finally break humanity's resistance. But they failed to realize that numbers alone meant nothing against an enemy that refused to submit. The humans were no longer fighting a defensive war. They had turned the tide. And now, they were on the hunt. The skies, once filled with the imposing presence of alien warships, now burned with wreckage as human forces targeted key supply routes and command vessels. The very strategy the Council had used to control countless civilizations was now being used against them. The real turning point came when a small group of human operatives launched the most daring mission of the war. The Galactic Council's primary command ship, stationed in high orbit, was the brain of the entire invasion. If it were to fall, the entire war effort would collapse. But attacking it directly was impossible. Its defenses were too strong, its security too tight. So humanity did what it did best. It adapted. A captured alien transport, modified with stolen technology, was sent toward the command ship under the guise of a damaged supply vessel. The enemy, still struggling with corrupted sensors and false data, failed to detect the infiltration until it was too late. A team of human soldiers, armed with nothing but stolen weapons and sheer determination, boarded the command ship and fought their way to the central control hub. Within minutes, they had done the impossible. They had taken over the heart of the invasion fleet. With the ship under human control, chaos erupted among the invaders. The Council's forces, now leaderless and unable to coordinate, fell into complete disarray. Some ships attempted to flee, others turned on each other in confusion, and many were left vulnerable to human attacks. The Council's greatest weapon had become its greatest weakness, and as Earth's forces pushed forward, reclaiming territory and striking down their once invincible enemies, the truth became undeniable. The invasion had failed. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, a species that was meant to be conquered had turned the tables. The war was no longer about survival. It was about victory. And humanity, battered but unbroken, was ready to finish what had been started. The control room of the Galactic Council's war headquarters was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the frantic tapping of alien fingers on holographic consoles. The invasion of Earth was supposed to be a swift operation, an overwhelming show of force that would leave no doubt about the Council's dominance. But instead of a quick victory, they had found themselves in an endless nightmare. Their fleets, once the pride of the Council, were now burning wrecks scattered across Earth's skies. Their ground forces, bred for war and trained to conquer, were being hunted like prey by human resistance fighters who fought with terrifying efficiency. The most advanced armada in the galaxy was losing to a species the Council had deemed primitive, and the reality of that failure sent waves of panic through the highest ranks of command. Every strategy they had relied on for centuries had failed. The first invasion wave had been met with unexpected resistance. The second wave had been sabotaged before it could even deploy properly. The Council had poured resources, soldiers, and technology into the war, yet Earth refused to fall. Instead, the humans had adapted, learned, and counterattacked with a ferocity that none of the Council's warlords had ever seen before. And now, their greatest fear had come true. Their forces were breaking apart. Their most advanced warships had been crippled by human interference. Their communications had been hacked, their supply chains disrupted, and their troops stranded in hostile territory. Every attempt to regain control had only worsened the situation. The grand strategist of the invasion, a veteran of 100 planetary conquests, stood motionless, his mind racing. He had crushed civilizations far stronger than Earth before. He had seen enemies surrender in fear before the battle even began. But humans were different. They did not fight like other species. They did not submit, did not accept defeat, and did not retreat in the face of overwhelming power. Instead, they grew stronger. The more the Council pushed, the more resistance they faced. The grand strategist had once dismissed the humans as reckless and undisciplined, But now he saw the truth. They were dangerously unpredictable, and that unpredictability had turned them into the deadliest enemy the Council had ever faced. As the first ships breached Earth's orbit, sensors picked up an anomaly. Something strange, something the Council's forces had not accounted for. A disruption in their communications, a subtle interference in their systems. It was small, almost insignificant, but it was there. The fleet's commanders dismissed it as background noise, the natural effects of Earth's electromagnetic field. They proceeded with the operation, confident in their overwhelming superiority. After all, what could a race of primitives possibly do against an empire that had crushed civilizations far greater than them? But what they failed to realize was that humanity was already watching. Humanity was already preparing, and humanity had never gone down without a fight. The sky above Earth darkened as the alien fleet arrived in full force. Massive warships, larger than entire cities, hovered in low orbit, blocking out the stars. The Galactic Council had sent its most powerful armada, expecting an effortless conquest. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth had, their weapons capable of vaporizing entire continents, and their soldiers bred for war. From their perspective, this was not a battle. It was a demonstration of power. They had conquered countless worlds before, species that had more advanced technology than humans, civilizations that had armies spanning across galaxies. Earth was just another target, another planet to be brought under control before it became a real threat. But as the invasion began, something happened that the Council had not foreseen. Humanity did not surrender. It did not beg for mercy. It fought back. The first wave of the invasion was meant to cripple Earth's defenses. The alien fleet deployed precision strikes against military bases, communication networks, and power grids. Their strategy was simple: paralyze humanity before it could organize resistance. Within minutes, satellites were destroyed, disrupting global communication. Energy beams rained down from the sky, striking key locations with devastating accuracy. Military outposts vanished in explosions of fire and smoke, and the world's armies scrambled to respond. But despite the overwhelming force, something was wrong. The destruction of satellites should have thrown the world into chaos, yet humans adapted almost instantly. Instead of confusion, there was coordination. Instead of fear, there was defiance. The invaders expected a broken and disorganized enemy, but what they found was something far more dangerous: a species that refused to give up. On the ground, soldiers who had never faced alien warfare before reacted with a speed and efficiency that shocked the invaders. Generals who had spent years preparing for earthbound conflicts suddenly found themselves fighting a war against an enemy beyond anything they had imagined, yet they adjusted without hesitation. Humans had always fought against impossible odds, against superior forces, against enemies that should have crushed them. Their history was filled with battles where they had been outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched, yet they had survived every time. This was no different. Instead of waiting to be destroyed, humanity counterattacked. In cities, underground resistance cells formed within hours, using guerrilla tactics the aliens had never encountered before. Makeshift command centers were set up in hidden bunkers, and military forces across the planet reorganized into smaller mobile units, striking wherever the invaders were weakest. The aliens, despite their advanced technology, were unprepared for the way humans fought. They had expected organized armies, predictable strategies, and conventional warfare. What they got was chaos. Fighters struck in the dead of night, using terrain and weather to their advantage. Engineers repurposed alien technology within days, finding weaknesses in their energy shields, jamming their communications, and sabotaging their equipment. Civilians who should have been terrified picked up weapons and joined the fight, turning entire cities into battlegrounds where every street, every building, and every alley became a trap. The Galactic Council had never seen anything like it. They had faced rebellions before, but none like this. Most species surrendered when faced with such overwhelming power, but humans were different. They adapted faster than any enemy the Council had ever fought. The invaders soon realized that Earth itself was working against them. The planet's weather systems interfered with their sensors, causing unexpected failures in their targeting systems. The electromagnetic field disrupted their energy-based weapons, forcing them to rely on ground troops more than they had planned. Even Earth's gravity played a role, affecting the physiology of alien soldiers who were used to lighter atmospheres. But the most dangerous force of all was human ingenuity. Within days, human scientists had figured out ways to disrupt the enemy's communications, hacking into their systems, and turning their own technology against them. A single captured alien drone led to the creation of countermeasures that allowed human forces to disable enemy ships mid-flight. Even those who had no military training found ways to resist. Farmers used old radio signals to interfere with enemy tracking devices. Mechanics built makeshift EMP weapons out of scrap metal, and hackers worked day and night to break into the alien network. The war that was supposed to last a few days stretched into weeks. The Council had expected a swift victory, but instead, they found themselves trapped in a conflict they did not understand. Every time they adapted, humanity found a new way to fight back. Their ships were no longer safe in orbit, as humans began launching missiles and experimental weapons that damaged even the most advanced warships. Their ground forces were constantly ambushed, their supply lines disrupted, their strategies rendered useless. They had assumed that humans would fall apart without their satellites, but they had underestimated the one thing that made humanity truly dangerous: their ability to think, to adapt, to survive at any cost. As more alien soldiers fell, the Council began to realize the truth. This was not just another conquest. This was not just another primitive species to be subdued. This was a war they might not win. The more they fought, the stronger humans became. They learned from every attack, they turned every loss into a lesson, and they refused to break. In a last desperate attempt to crush the resistance, the Council ordered the use of a planetary suppression weapon, an energy bomb capable of wiping out entire regions. The device was deployed in the heart of a major city, but before it could activate, it was intercepted. A group of human operatives had infiltrated an alien command ship, using stolen technology to disable the weapon before it could detonate. The Galactic Council, for the first time in its history, experienced something it had never felt before. Fear. The nightmare had only just begun. The war had raged for weeks, and the Galactic Council's forces were no closer to victory than they had been on the first day of the invasion. What was supposed to be a swift and overwhelming conquest had turned into a nightmare. The more they pushed, the harder humanity fought back. Their fleets had taken heavy damage, their soldiers were constantly ambushed, and their technology, once thought to be invincible, was being torn apart by a species that was never supposed to be a threat. The Council had underestimated Earth, but more importantly, they had underestimated the one thing that made humans truly dangerous: their ability to turn defeat into strength. The first sign of change came when the Council's warships, still dominating Earth's orbit, began experiencing unexplained failures. At first, it seemed like minor disruptions. Communications flickered, targeting systems lagged, and energy shields weakened at random intervals. But soon, the problems escalated. Entire ships lost power mid-flight, crashing into each other or spiraling down toward Earth. What the Council had assumed were mere technical malfunctions were, in fact, the result of human ingenuity. Earth's scientists and engineers had cracked the enemy's encrypted systems. With stolen alien technology, they had found a way to send false signals, feeding misinformation directly into the invaders' networks. What the fleet saw on their sensors was no longer real. Their own ships were being turned against them. The chaos in space became unbearable, and for the first time, the invaders found themselves retreating, not because of human firepower, but because they could no longer trust their own systems. On the ground, the resistance had evolved beyond what the Council believed possible. Human commanders no longer fought in scattered groups. They had formed a unified strategy that covered the entire planet. Instead of waiting for the aliens to strike, they took the fight directly to them. A network of underground bunkers, hidden bases, and secured communications allowed humanity to move as a single force. Information traveled faster than the enemy could react, and attacks were coordinated with terrifying precision. What had once been isolated skirmishes had transformed into a full-scale counteroffensive. Every city that had fallen was being retaken, every alien outpost was being dismantled, and every captured weapon was now being used against its creators. The Galactic Council, a governing body of the most advanced civilizations in the universe, convened in a massive chamber floating above a dying star. The air was thick with tension as representatives from 100 alien species debated the same question that had haunted them for decades: what to do about Earth. Humanity was a young race, barely stepping beyond its homeworld, yet it had done something no other species had managed in so little time. It had advanced at a terrifying speed, adapting to every challenge, thriving in chaos, and refusing to be controlled. The Council had observed them for centuries, hoping that humanity would either destroy itself or fall into compliance with galactic laws. But neither had happened. Instead, humans had spread like wildfire, their technology growing at an unpredictable pace, their resilience defying all known logic. And now, the whispers of fear had turned into a decision that could not be ignored. The decree had been passed. Earth must be pacified before it was too late. The decision was not taken lightly. Many in the Council had hoped for a peaceful integration of humanity into the galactic order, but the risk was too great. They had seen what humans could do when pushed to the brink. History was filled with examples of their stubbornness, their refusal to surrender even when all odds were against them. They were not like other species that had easily fallen in line under the rule of the Council. They fought, they adapted, and worst of all, they learned. If given enough time, humans would not only match the most powerful empires in the galaxy, they would surpass them. The Council had seen this pattern before, but never at such an alarming rate. A decision had to be made before Earth reached the point of no return. And so, with a unanimous vote, the invasion was authorized. A fleet unlike any seen before was assembled, a force designed not just to subdue, but to overwhelm. The Council had no intention of engaging in drawn-out battles or negotiations. This was to be swift, decisive, and absolute. The plan was simple: disable Earth's defenses, neutralize its military, and establish complete control before humanity could organize a resistance. The Armada was equipped with energy weapons that could wipe out entire cities in seconds, ships that moved faster than light, and technology centuries beyond anything Earth possessed. To the Council, this was not a war. It was an extermination of a future threat, a necessary evil. As the fleet began its journey toward the Sol system, some within the Council hesitated. They had studied human history, and there was something deeply unsettling about it. Humanity had never been the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most intelligent species on Earth, yet they had dominated their world through sheer willpower and adaptability. They had survived ice ages, mass extinctions, and endless wars among their own kind. Every attempt to suppress or control them had only made them stronger. Even now, as the fleet approached their world, the humans were completely unaware of the doom coming for them. And yet, something about that ignorance felt wrong. The Council had faced many rebellions in the past, had conquered countless worlds, and had crushed every opposition, but never had they felt this uneasy about an invasion. The Supreme Chancellor of the Council, a towering figure with translucent blue skin, stared at the holographic image of Earth floating before him. It was a fragile planet, small compared to the countless worlds the Council ruled, yet it held an energy unlike any other. He had heard the warnings from the scholars, the analysts, and even the spies embedded within human society. They all said the same thing: do not underestimate them. But the Chancellor dismissed these concerns. What could a race of primitives do against the might of an empire that had ruled the stars for millennia? Their weapons were outdated, their fleets non-existent. The battle would be over before it even began. As the fleet neared the edges of the solar system, a transmission was sent to Earth, a simple demand for surrender. There would be no negotiations, no diplomacy, just an ultimatum. Submit or be annihilated. The Council expected panic, chaos, and immediate capitulation. But Earth's response was not what they had anticipated. Instead of fear, there was silence. No desperate messages begging for mercy, no world leaders pleading for peace. Just silence. It was as if humanity was staring back at the Council, calculating, waiting, and for the first time, doubt crept into the minds of those who had orchestrated this invasion. Desperation crept into the minds of the Council's leaders. They had sent reinforcement fleets, but those too had fallen. They had deployed elite ground forces, but those had been annihilated. Their last remaining option was the most extreme one, the weapon of planetary cleansing. It was a forbidden strategy, used only in the most extreme situations, one that would ensure Earth's total destruction. The device capable of collapsing an entire planet's ecosystem, making it uninhabitable within days. The Council had always considered it a last resort, a weapon so terrible that it was rarely spoken of. But now, faced with complete humiliation, they were willing to consider it. If they could not conquer Earth, they would make sure no one could have it. The order was given. The last remaining command ships positioned themselves above Earth, preparing to launch the planet-destroying weapon. But the humans had been watching. Even before the Council could activate the device, Earth's resistance forces launched a desperate attack. A squadron of stolen alien fighters, piloted by human aces, broke through the Council's defenses and struck at the heart of the fleet. Explosions tore through the command ships as Earth's forces unleashed every weapon at their disposal. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans, armed with technology they barely understood, fought as though they had been born for this moment. Their attacks were precise, their tactics ruthless, and their determination unbreakable. The Galactic Council's fleets, already weakened, stood no chance. One by one, their ships fell, their commanders overwhelmed by the sheer force of Earth's retaliation. And as the last surviving warship attempted to flee, its distress signals echoing through the void, the truth became clear. The war was over. The Galactic Council had lost. Earth had not only survived, but it had shattered the illusion of the Council's invincibility. And now, for the first time in history, the galaxy would know the one thing the Council had feared the most, that humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, and they had just won their first interstellar war. The Galactic Council had always believed in its absolute power. It had ruled the stars for millennia, crushing resistance before it could even begin. It had wiped out entire civilizations that dared to oppose its authority. Its war fleets were unmatched, its armies unstoppable, and its technology centuries ahead of any other species. To the Council, war was nothing more than a display of dominance, an execution, not a battle. And yet, here they were, facing something they had never imagined possible. Humanity, a species they had considered weak and insignificant, had done the unthinkable. The invasion of Earth had turned into a disaster. Their fleets had been annihilated, and their forces had been forced into retreat. But what truly terrified the Council was not the loss itself. It was what came after. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council was no longer the hunter. It was the hunted. The humans were no longer fighting to defend their planet. They were coming for the Council itself. The impossible had happened. Earth had survived the full might of the galactic war machine, and now it was striking back. The first warning came when a deep space relay station went dark. Then another. Then a military outpost on the edge of Council-controlled space was wiped out in a single night. No distress calls, no survivors, just silence. The Council dismissed it at first, assuming it was just an accident, a coincidence. But then the attacks increased. Trade routes were disrupted, supply convoys vanished, and strategic bases were destroyed with precision strikes. There was no pattern, no warning. The humans had turned their own tactics against them. Panic spread through the Council's leadership. They had never been on the defensive before. They had never faced an enemy that could strike at will, an enemy that refused to follow the rules of war. Humans did not attack in large, predictable fleets like other species. They moved in small, lethal groups, striking from the shadows and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Their captured alien technology, once thought to be useless in their hands, had been modified and improved in ways the Council had never anticipated. They had taken what they had learned from the invasion and turned it into a weapon of their own. The breaking point came when the humans launched their boldest attack yet. The Council's High Command, a massive station orbiting a heavily fortified planet, was considered the safest place in the galaxy. No enemy had ever dared approach it. But one night, the station's alarms blared as something unexpected happened. Human ships emerged from the void, bypassing every defense system, as if they had planned the attack for years. Council warships scrambled to respond, but by the time they engaged, it was already too late. The humans had infiltrated the station. Explosions rocked the structure as its most vital systems were destroyed in rapid succession. The Council's leaders, once confident in their safety, were now running for their lives. The war was no longer about territory or power. It was about survival. The same desperation the humans had once felt when facing invasion had now consumed the Council itself. Every remaining fleet was called back to defend the core worlds. Every resource was redirected to fortify what was left. But deep down, they knew it was only a matter of time. The nightmare had become reality. The invincible empire had been broken. The unstoppable war machine had been defeated. And now, the humans, the very species they had once sought to enslave, were coming to finish what had been started.